Welcome to Adjusted Reality, a podcast series trusted by the adjusted and brought to you by the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress, where we learn from athletes, celebrities, influencers, and healthcare professionals about how to optimize health in a fun, relatable way. Join me, Dr. Sherry McAllister, as we welcome Dr. Robert G. Silverman. Dr. Robert Silverman is a leading chiropractic physician, certified clinical nutritionist, and internationally recognized expert in functional and integrative health, a best-selling author of Immune Reboot and Inside Out Health. He was named Sports Chiropractor of the Year by the ACA Sports Council, and Dr. Silverman serves on the advisory board of Functional Medicine University. He also holds some key roles with companies such as Zirconia, Nutridyne, and KBMO Diagnostics. A principal investigator, he led 2 FDA Level 1 studies on laser therapy. He is a dynamic speaker, a thought leader, and he lectures globally, contributes to journals and media, and hosts the Proven Health Alternative podcast. We are absolutely thrilled to have you, Dr. Silverman. Welcome to Adjusted Reality.
I'm stoked to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's a lot of fun to meet someone like you because you're very eclectic in what you do. And what I really want the audience to know is he drinks from the fountain of youth. And it's so clear because I don't know anyone who has as much energy, travels as much as you do, and still has the sunshine as part of your energy level. It's all about the sun and not about the moon. You bring the positive in positivity.
Without question, I'm a big believer that tomorrow's always a better day. And chiropractic changed my life, and I'm hoping that it changes others' lives of the people that I get to touch.
So beautifully said. And as I started this out, I started talking about the fountain of youth. And one of the pieces that we often get asked questions of from our beautiful audience, which we truly adore and love. So shout out to our audience. Thank you. Thank you for making us in the top 100 in the best doctor podcasts in the world. I want to ask you, starting with, how do you define longevity? What does that look like for our audience? Because this is going to be one of those moments where we all look at our future. I love the future. It's bright. And you said it yourself. Tomorrow could be a better day. Tell us what longevity really means.
Longevity, without question, is the incisive conversation of 2025. It's exciting. We talk about the balance between lifespan and health span. Lifespan, as we all know, is how long we live. Health span is how long we live healthily or without chronic disease. Unfortunately, most Americans suffer from chronic disease. It's a real drain on our healthcare system. 86% of our Medicare dollars is spent on chronic disease, and 98% of our Medicaid dollars is spent on chronic disease. So health span is avoiding chronic disease, but chiropractors look much deeper than that. It's not just lifespan versus health span, it's vitality.
Ooh, I like that
white,
word.
beautiful cloud that's clandescent in the sky. It's beautiful. So my whole idea is to increase our lifespan, increase our health span, invigorate our vitality to give ourselves that idea of longevity. And nobody's better suited than chiropractors to help the patients, the consumers, with the idea of longevity.
I really think you've hit the nail on the head when we start talking about the health span, but most importantly, the vitality, because so much of today's world is, as you said, it's focused on the disease care and the dollars that are being sent to disease care. Share with me, after being a chiropractor for many years, why do you think chiropractic is so well positioned in this space for our audience?
I've been a chiropractor for 26 plus years, and I think that we are well suited because, not that we're anti-drugs, but we look for alternative to drugs. We're not anti-medication. We're not anti-surgery. We look at exercise as an elixir, not as work. We look at fixing the body from the inside out. And more so than that, you use the word eclectic. I think chiropractors are eclectic. We know the body is all interconnected. Nobody knows that better than a chiropractor. You know, the gut talks to the brain talks to the gut talks to our central nervous system. So, with that philosophy as our background, nobody's better suited to help with longevity. Plus, the fact how many chiropractors have you heard talk about what diets to eat, what foods to eat, what lifestyles to adhere to? You know, the chiropractic lifestyle is a lifestyle of longevity.
Oh, that is well said. And I think as we look at longevity, for many of us, we're sitting in our seat and we're starting to think, well, how do we gauge longevity? Like, what are the hallmarks of aging that we should be aware of? And then getting into the more science portion of it, what are some of the biomarkers that actually help us know that the longevity is a factor we can actually now start to clock, if that's kind of a crude way of saying we now know where we are, but we also have an opportunity to say where we want to go and what is
Um,
changeable.
That is outstanding because the basis of chiropractic is to test, treat, and reassess. But let's get those hallmarks of aging. Let's talk about the idea of immunity. Nobody, again, really stronger in immunity than chiropractors. I like to use the theme Immune Reboot book that I wrote. The reason I wrote the book was during COVID, I was very distraught at the explanations of the immune system. I thought that nobody really encompassed it in a concise manner and really confused the patient population. So I'm a big believer in immune health, immune balance, the balance between the innate and the adaptive immune system. But the key to that is having immune rejuvenation. Remember, immune cells break down and they come back. So we want to come back with rejuvenated, strong immune cells. But the really secret sauce to it all is immune resilience, our ability to be able to have an immune system that's flexible and variable. A great example is a viral infection. And then we get hit with another viral infection, but it's slightly different. Our ability to have resilience would enable us to be able to put up our immune defense against that. Not being resilient would be letting every variation of a virus get in. Also, another hallmark of aging would be inflammation or chronic inflammation. I believe that our patient base, unfortunately, are pre-inflamed. I think COVID taught us three things. Taught us one, half the world's crazy. Two, the other half the world's crazy. And three, everybody is pre-inflamed. So much so that one of my mantras is to manage and modulate chronic and pre-inflammation. Another hallmark of aging would be the microbiome, the gut, the epicenter of your health. 80% of your immune cells are in your gut. If you have good gut health, you have not only good health, you have good musculoskeletal health. The microbiome, not only the gut microbiome, but the gum microbiome. Studies have shown having good gum health actually decreases dramatically your incidence of Alzheimer's, which I hope we can cover at some point in this podcast. Mitochondrial dysfunction is another hallmark of aging. Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, but it's just so much more than that. It's also part of your immune system. It also communicates with your gut. Mitochondrial dysfunction is really the black cloud behind the curtain for neurodegenerative diseases. And something that's very particular to chiropractors would be fascia and vagus nerve tone. Fascia is interesting in that I was on a webinar with some very famous doctors named Perlmutter, Bland, and Hyman. We were talking about immunity, and the conversation switched to longevity. And I had to have something in my back pocket because these guys have rifles full of information and at the drop of a hat, they're ready to go. And I started to talk about fascia, the wetsuit of the body, the ability to keep tensegrity, this extracellular matrix that provides an intracellular communicator. And when I talked about the fascia, I could see Hyman and Perlmutter turn around and say, this is a good topic. Who better to talk about fascia, fascial injuries, and the protection of fascia than chiropractors? Vagus nerve tone. Sherry, do you know when I went to school, you know what they taught us about the vagus nerve? Cranial nerve number 10, captain of the
Right.
parasympathetic nervous system. It has become so much more than that. It goes from the brainstem, the medulla oblongata, down through the transverse colon, innervating with all its tentacles, all the things, the heart, the stomach, the intestines. Did you know that it's not only, as I said before, the captain of the parasympathetic nervous system. When vagus nerve tone is down, you have a higher incidence of depression, PTSD, irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bowel disease, all sorts of gut things. So you want to be able to elevate and stimulate and balance this vagus nerve tone. And if you can do so, guess what happens? You have that homeostasis, which we talk about, between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So much so that vagus nerve conversation has full-fledged seminars, 8-hour seminars that are running through different types of fields right now. But who's better to talk about a cranial nerve and stimulating a cranial nerve than who? But a chiropractor. And two real big components of hallmarks of aging: dysbiosis, the unleveling of good and bad bacteria. Did you know you need 85% or more good bacteria not to have dysbiosis? I believe that dysbiosis is the Darth Vader of our gut issues, because dysbiosis leads us to candida overgrowth, leaky gut, tight junction problems, the release of LPS, on and on and on. And the gut, as I said before, is the epicenter of our health. And the last thing for the hallmark of aging would be the loss of muscle mass. Gabriella Lyons has said that muscle mass is the longevity organ. I believe muscle mass is the currency of longevity, without question. However, interestingly enough, as a hallmark of aging, how do you equate muscle mass? Well, you equate muscle mass by making sure that our patients exercise and use resistance. Once again, not to be redundant, who better than a chiropractor to talk about exercise, rehabilitation, exercise, and performance?
What a beautiful answer, Luke. I am your father. So when you think about these really important pieces that come together to really have the hallmarks of where can we look at aging and how do we start to process all of the pieces? And you said some really deep moments of reflection on our nervous system. And I think most people don't give enough credit to understanding and therefore influencing the nervous system. And you're right. When we start talking about tensegrity and the fascial ability to really create change in our life and be healthy, do better, have better, be better, that becomes someone who can walk alongside you, take your hand and take you from where you are to where you want to go. That takes someone who can coach you, who can engineer that architectural structure in your body, who's looking at the bones, the ligaments, the muscles, the nervous system in such a fundamental way. And with looking at the biomarkers for longevity, that's also going to be a key to where you are right now. So share with our audience a little bit more about the biomarkers for longevity and what would they be looking for. Obviously, like you said, if you don't have muscle mass, your balance is off. That's just an easy that, because that type 2 fiber, for the audience listening, when you have a type 2, we call it the fast twitch fibers. If you're aging and you're losing fast twitch, do you know what ends up happening? Well, the easy, right? The slow. The slow starts to take over. Yeah. Who wants to be slow as they age? Tell me more. Tell us where you look at, where you fundamentally focus your time, talent, and attention to when you're talking to the people about longevity.
I really appreciate the fact that you allow me to revert back to the biomarkers of longevity and not to lose your thought. Yeah, muscle mass, but is muscle mass really it? No, muscle mass is step one on the steps scale in the ladder to get to overall good quality longevity. Step one, muscle mass. Step two, body composition. I'll give you an example. If I'm 6 feet tall and 185 pounds and 12% body fat, I check all the boxes. Mm-hmm. However, if you have me come back on in a year and I'm 6 feet tall, 205 pounds and 24% body fat with the same skeletal muscle, I no longer check all the needed boxes because my body composition is off. I'm too heavy. And the fat cells start to marble the muscle, which is a point that you made, the effectiveness, the vitality of the muscle. Now, I'm probably not going to have any diseases, so my health span theoretically won't be affected, but my vitality will be affected. And I do believe the top markers in reference to muscle would be a VO2 max, and believe it or not, a maximum grip strength. We could have a 7-foot athlete, a Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he may not be able to deadlift. He may not be able to squat because he's got too long to go. And you may have someone who's more diminutive at 5'4", who can generate a lot of power because it's less range of motion. But that doesn't mean Giannis isn't strong. His grip strength would be there because of his athletic endeavors. But really the top shelf level, and you touched upon it, movement and movement disorders. That's the critical element. You'll know how old somebody is. Look, we're in an era now where people do Botox, they dye their hair, they wear makeup, they use filters. So it's really hard to tell how old somebody is. But when you watch them move, you'll know if they're 70, 60, 50, or 40, or they've just had a tough life and maybe played rugby and football without any equipment. But to really get into the biomarkers, this is for you out there, you chiropractors. This is for you out there, you consumers. These are markers that you should ask your functional medicine chiropractor, your primary care physician to take. I believe in a lot of inflammatory markers like interleukin-1 beta, interleukin-6, interleukin-8, and TNF alpha. As for a full composite inflammatory marker, I'm sure most chiropractors themselves, unfortunately, don't request these tests. Interleukin-1 beta will allow you to know the ability or the status of your intervertebral disc. Interleukin-6 and interleukin-8 are typically elevated when somebody has chronic lower back pain. Imagine this correlation between an MRI and a blood serum level, and you can really ascertain and reveal to the patient that they may have lower back pain or disc herniations down the line because of these serum blood markers. TNF alpha is the funnel or the top of funnel that all these interleukins are under. C-reactive protein. I'm a big believer in C-reactive protein because it's a tissue inflammatory marker, a great marker. Hemoglobin A1C. What's most interesting about hemoglobin A1C, it's a marker for prediabetes and diabetes. So I'll give you a, for instance, how chiropractors ascertain these numbers. 5.7 to 6.4 means that you're a pre-diabetic. If you come in and you're 5.4 or more in Rob's house, guess what? You're losing brain matter as we speak and listen to this podcast. Vitamin D. Everybody should know their vitamin D level, especially everybody seeing a chiropractor. Nothing provides a greater swath of health-promoting properties than the quality of vitamin D. Did you know that 1 billion people in the world are vitamin D deficient and 42% of Americans are vitamin D insufficient? One of the biggest symptomologies of vitamin D insufficiency, musculoskeletal aches, musculoskeletal failures. So every chiropractor should be testing their patients for vitamin D. You worried about Alzheimer's? It's called ApoE. Everybody for $75 should take this genetic marker. It is my favorite genetic marker. ApoE has 3 different variants. ApoE2 is 1% of the population, and in that 1% of the population, you'll never see Alzheimer's. God bless you, Mazel Tov. ApoE3, I happen to be an ApoE3. It's about 75% of the population. You're in neutral. If you have a good lifestyle, you can drive your health car forward. If you have a bad lifestyle, you can drive your health car towards Alzheimer's. The one that we're worried about is ApoE4. 25% of people have an ApoE4. 1/4 of the people listening right now have an ApoE4. You have an 80% increased chance of having genetic Alzheimer's. Put the brakes on. Stop right now and start with your anti-Alzheimer's protocol. There's some other markers that you may want to ask your doctor for. LP(a), your genetic heart attack marker, and cholesterol. You want to know your omega-3 index test. Your omega-3 index will let me know about your cell membrane test and some gut markers like LPS and zonulin. But again, the most important marker for longevity, without question, is how well do you move. And who tests movement more than chiropractors? And we'll give a little love to our physical therapist brothers.
Yeah. I love giving the love. You're probably going to have to listen if you're not a medical related individual. You're probably going to want to pause, back up, write them down, because he gave you a lot of information, but he gave it in a very succinct way. There's no messing around when it comes to knowing where you are. And that's why I often tell you on adjusted reality, it's a GPS system. It's oftentimes we feel we're nowhere. And then you get your labs and you go from nowhere to now here. Now you know where you are, and you have Dr. Silverman in your court telling you, let's really get down to the aspects of what does a vital life look like, because no one wants to live longer if we're going to live sicker. And I think everybody would agree with that. It's our responsibility, the ability to respond to how we look at our life now and the choices that we make. And we've talked about Alzheimer's, and we've had the Alzheimer's research and prevention longevity medical specialists on adjusted reality. And I really love that you talk about things that people can do versus finding out, okay, I have this marker and therefore I'm really heading down the road for these problems, because this is about action. And I want to talk about that because oftentimes supplements and nutrients, they get confusing for the average person, and they need to start somewhere. Where are some of the things that the average consumer can, at very minimum, before they've even seen a chiropractor, start looking at in their life? And also, I want to add in how important their gut health is, because as you noted, there's no sense in changing the brain if your gut's not well, because they communicate. They're best friends. There's no separating them. They don't live in separate houses. They live together,
It's
and they
great.
should be happy. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, when it comes to supplements, I want to make 2 points. I do sell and recommend a lot of supplements, but supplemental to what? Supplemental to lifestyle and food. Good food is a potentiator for health information. Bad food is a potentiator for inflammation. It's a code. It's a communication with the outside world to the inside world. So nothing takes place before eating good food. Please make good choices. And, speaking about the gut to brain axis, whatever you do to your gut, you do to your brain. Whatever you do to your brain, you do to your gut in a millisecond. And understand that that food that you eat is going to allow the communication between the gut and the brain. Number 2, when it comes to supplements, I'll give you a list. That doesn't mean you need to take all of them. It's a choice. It's a menu. I may take them all, but then again, I've decided I'm going to live to 110 and die of hypervitaminosis, but that's my gig.
Love
What
it.
can I say? So some of the leading edge for longevity supplements, I call it my Super 5, a multivitamin, multi-mineral, a methylated multivitamin and multi-mineral, an omega-3 fatty acid. Omega-3 fatty acids, without question. Did you know that if you take 2 grams of omega-3 fatty acids starting now, you'll add 5 years to your life, 5 years to a healthy life? Vitamin D3 with K2. I just had a specialist, much to my chagrin. It was a bone of contention. And he said D3 should not go with K2. Bing, 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 wrong answer at double jeopardy. D3 and K2 are synergistic. I would recommend D3 and K2. Incidentally, if you take D3 with K2, you add 3 years to your healthy life. So just taking 2 grams of omega-3s, 2,000 IUs of vitamin D3 with K2, you've just added 8 years to your life. For somebody who's going to be 60 in 3 weeks, bring on those supplements. Come on, give me a tan. Let's go fatty fish. Interestingly enough, fatty fish, smash fish, wild salmon, mackerel, anchovy, sardines, and herring. To finish up with the Super 5, a pre and a probiotic. Do not take a probiotic without a prebiotic. The prebiotic is the food for the probiotic. If you're taking a probiotic, you probably have some gut issues. Your gut may not be able to produce enough nutrients for your probiotic to eat. To ensure its overall staying power and its effectiveness, you want to take it with a prebiotic. And lastly, I'm a big believer in collagen. Collagen's great for skin, hair, and nails, great for the gut. So it's sort of a player's choice, but I'll fill in with collagen. But let's really dig into some of the more longevity-oriented supplements, like Akkermansia, which is a probiotic. It's taken the world by storm. It's great for blood glucose. It stimulates GLP-1.
We'll
Ooh.
get to that. We'll get to that one.
Oh, I love that. That is That is without question the most interesting conversation of 2025. You know, I went to University of Bridgeport, and at the time when we graduated 26 years ago, we had to write a thesis. And the topic that I considered and wrote about was creatine and its effect on muscle health. So I am happy, I'm ecstatic, I'm exuberant that people are talking about creatine. So yes, creatine's great for ATP and mitochondrial function. Creatine's outstanding. The data is robust that it provides muscle growth. It's also fabulous for cognition, better for females for mental health and cognitive improvement than males. So creatine is great for both men and women equally. Now, I mentioned a prebiotic. The prebiotic in a supplemental form of choice is XOS, xylo-oligosaccharides. Do not ask me to spell it. Get a spelling bee person to do that. This is what I call the universal donor, the prebiotic that will allow you to feed all the different probiotics and only allows good bacteria to grow. NAD is another great choice. There's a receptor site on every mitochondria for NAD. Now, interesting, something called pro-resolving mediators. It is without question a fractionated fish oil. Fish oils are supposed to convert to pro-resolving mediators. Unfortunately, they don't. They're not very effective. They only convert 3 to 5%. Americans are not real good converters because our healthcare system, our environment is quite poor. I'm a big believer in pro-resolving mediators in that pro-resolving mediators allow for the resolution of inflammation. They allow for the homeostasis between the initiation and the resolution of inflammation. Homeostasis. So that really should be a Super 5 foundation supplement. Taurine is another hidden gem. It's a branched chain amino acid that provides a lot of functions in the gut. And if you want to talk about the best mineral, the miracle mineral, 800 enzymatic reactions, magnesium. And let's not forget what is without question the talk of town now, peptides, BPC 157. BPC 157 has been called the Wolverine supplement because Hugh Jackman gets shot all the time. He heals right before your eyes. BPC 157 has an amazing healing capacity. It speeds up tissue and healing recovery. Great for the gut, great for the gum. It is without question, should be used in an oral form, and it has chiropractic written all over it.
I enjoy the laundry list of opportunities that a patient has when they start talking about their nourishment, their internal pharmacy, if you will, because that's really their responsibility. And when I say that word, I mean it logistically, is you have an ability to respond. You can hear what you said. Yes, back up the recording and start making your list. But
Got to dump.
That's right. Do reflect that he is the author of 2 different books. And if I could point those out again, it's the Immune Reboot and Inside Out Health. So you're not alone. He's got 2 books for you. I know this is going fast and furious, but listen, as we start looking at those Furious 5, I also want to reflect back because it's so important when we start thinking numbers and fun. Furious 5, what should you put in your body? Then what should you do for your body? And I really want to look at the quaternary of motion, the Curious 4, flexibility, mobility, stability, and capability, which is strength. So you're starting to see what Dr. Silverman's really starting to point out. It's not one thing. We wish it was, because if we did, we this podcast would be over. It's what we do every day to make a simple change to make life better. That vitality index is your choice. How high we go, how low we go, those are options. And one piece that you brought up that I think is really important for our listeners to hear is the gut health, because we live in a society where, we're going to skip a meal and we'll do a meal replacement and it's all full of just fun and happiness, right? Says no one. We have to be very careful on what we're doing for our gut health. And I want you to point out again, because the gut axis, which is very important for chiropractors to look at, is a piece that we want the consumers to really understand gut health and what gut access is.
Well, there's a gut to everywhere axis. So there's a gut to brain axis, as you and I both talked about. And that's an axis that chiropractors should really look at because, as we said before, whatever you do to your gut, you do to your brain. Whatever you do to your brain, you do to your gut. So 6 out of 10 athletes who incur a concussion have gut dysbiosis, have leaky gut, have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So one of the first axes that a chiropractor should look at is the gut to brain axis. Did you know that the largest nervous system in the body is in the gut and it's called the enteric nervous system? So, right then and there alone, chiropractors who are nervous system experts need to consider adding in the idea of the gut. The enteric nervous system actually communicates with the central nervous system because it communicates with the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve goes from the gut to the brain. The brain obviously is part of the central nervous system. So now we've got the body being all interconnected, and the epicenter of your health would be the gut. But for me, the two that I found that chiropractors really latch onto and really love is the gut to disc and the gut to joint axis. 52% of surgical disc interventions have a bacterial infection. Well, where did that bacteria come from? Or where did that bacterial translocation come from? Well, when you look at your gut and your lower back, they are in extremely close proximity. So I purport to you that those bacterial infections are coming from your gut. It has been stated in a 2021 study that it's conceivable that bacterial infections may be the number one reason for disc herniations. At the very least, the data indicates we now have to consider all inflammatory type conditions for the gut to disc axis. How about the gut to joint axis? In the idea that the gut leads to autoimmunity, we know that rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune condition. It has been stated that we should now consider osteoarthritis, and it's going to blow you up.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're going to get a lot, should be autoimmune because the body attacks itself. It's not wear and tear. It's wear and tear creating inflammation that the body can't handle and gets confused via the immune system and starts to attack the joints. Cytokines, inflammatory markers, get released at the time of leaky gut. They're released and they affect the joints. Matrix metalloproteinases, not to nerd out, MMPSs, are released at the time of leaky gut. They eat cellular debris. They attack fibrocartilage. What in your spine is made of fibrocartilage? Your disc. What in your knee is made of fibrocartilage? Your meniscus. So there's a definitive gut to joint axis. And lastly, with the idea of the gut to brain axis, interestingly enough, neurodegenerative diseases have an origin in the gut. So Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis. 90% of people that have autism have a gut issue. It has been stated that you should test not only the child, but the mother to see the status of their gut. Once again, the origins of neurodegenerative disease come in the gut. They are bidirectional, gut to the brain, and they are autoimmune, leading to neurodegeneration. I know that's a lot to unpack, but everybody start taking care of your guts, and you need to ask yourself 2 questions before we go on. Do you have the guts to be healthy? And what have you done for your guts lately?
Oh, I love that. As you start adjusting people's reality, it's number one, there is a focus on the nervous system. That is an absolute critical understanding. And 130 years ago, chiropractors were kind of slotted into this spot that very few understood, which was we're alleviators of pain and it's all about the bones. And it actually was never about the bones. It was actually about the nervous system. It got lost in translation. And so we are here to really help you understand why this is such a critical conversation is if your nervous system works with you, for you, and is all about you, why wouldn't you do everything that would implore and embrace a new reality, which is, I want to do better for my gut, but Dr. Silverman, I don't know what to do. And I think that's where, the conversations in 2025, they led to GLP-1. Oh, it's the greatest weight loss opportunity. I can shoot myself in the leg with one of the products of the pharmaceutical world. but there's a consequence to everything. Even as we sit here today and we're aging, the consequence of you listening is that you're sitting and hopefully maybe you're on a treadmill and you're doing something even better for your body. But talk to us about the GLP-1, the reality of how it got started and where it is now, and what we can do more naturally to help ourselves out of a injection for every fat cell.
Well, it's fascinating when we talk about the GLP-1 because it's a huge bone of contention for me. I'm sure that drugs have their place. If I'm the president of health, everything's on the table and I'm willing to weigh it. If you're 400 pounds and you failed at everything, you may need to take a GLP-1. Now, what's interesting is why is the GLP-1 drugs work so much faster, but have so many more deleterious downstream effects than the natural GLP-1? It's called half-life. The drugs stay in your body for 7 to 10 days. So, of course, they theoretically, but really don't, increase the amount of weight loss, but they don't. But they will definitely increase the amount of side effects. Whereas foods which stimulate the hormone secreting gland in your body called your GI tract, they only stay in your half-life for a few hours, or actually now we're talking like 15 to 20 minutes. So the GLP-1 really exemplifies the idea of the gut to brain because there's a GLP-1 receptor in your gut. There's a GLP-1 receptor in your brain and they communicate directly. Incidentally, just as a little cocktail party note, there's a GLP-1 receptor on your vagus nerve. But let's look at the numbers. I'm number driven. If you take Ozempic, and the people in this study had a 37 BMI, which means they were a little corpulent. If you took Ozempic over a 52-week period, you lost 19 pounds. I don't know about you, Sherry, but that's not like moving my meter all that much. 2.5 inches on the waist. Whereas if you did Wegovy, which is a high dose Ozempic, you lost 27 pounds and 3.5 inches. Mounjaro, which is boat full of side effects, you lost 45 pounds and 5.5 inches, and weight loss stalls after a year. In the real world, those numbers don't actually exist. 80% of people do not reach those goals because 7 out of 10 people stop taking the drugs because of the side effects, nausea, pepsic, all sorts of issues. And 1 in 10 people now are microdosing. So yeah, great. So you get a little arsenic called a GLP-1. Let's just take a little and see if we can minimize the side effects. Does that really make sense? 8 out of 10 people don't even make those numbers. But when you realize, like, why is this occurring? I mean, 75% of Americans are overweight or obese. I get it. But let me see if it's the big dollar sign pushing it. Novo Nordisk distributes Wegovy. It costs them $40 a month. If they sell it for $40 a month, they make 10%. Not bad. The goal is 3,000%. Germany resells that $40 price tag for 59 bucks. Fair. The UK, 92. Starting to get into some interesting markup. Canada, 155. Okay. America, $1,349.
Go big or go home, right?
Right. Go big, go green, or go home. So I mean, so it's obvious that the dollar sign is pushing some decision-making skills, and that's unfortunate. If you have a GLP-1 dysfunction, which is an issue, you also probably have leaky gut and you also have mitochondrial dysfunction. If you have mitochondrial dysfunction, you have a GLP-1 dysfunction. If you have leaky gut, you have a GLP-1. So before you were to give somebody a GLP-1 drug, why wouldn't you test the things that we talked about, mitochondria and leaky gut? So the real question remains, how would you activate the GLP-1 naturally, more inexpensively, equally as effectively, probably more effectively because you could stay on it, calling lifestyle? Well, the first thing I would do is exercise. 4 to 5 studies said it didn't matter what kind of exercise, just get your butt moving. But what kind of natural supplements would I recommend? Number 1 at the top of the list, the home run hitter, berberine. Number 2, believe it or not, acromantia. Ginseng, green tea, pomegranate. You're going to need to, I'll go a little slower. Fiber, omega-3s, proteins, magnesium, glutamine, caffeine, probiotic strains like L-reuteri, short-chain fatty acids, fermentable fiber, bitter melon. Did you know that when you eat those green leafy things, and people say, they're so bitter. Those polyphenols that you mentioned, that's giving it the bitter taste. Bitter stimulates a taste receptor in your mouth, which stimulates the GLP-1, whereas sugar actually tones it down. And there's something called allulose now. Allulose is a unique sugar at 70% as sweet as sugar. That actually stimulates the GLP-1. You know, it was stated in a magazine, interestingly enough, it said, our own natural GLP-1. It's called our own microbiome and food that we choose. So there you have it. Once again, chiropractic lifestyle equals GLP-1 effectiveness and adherence to good outcomes.
It's now that we have these insights that GLP-1, because you start off as a consumer and you think it's something you have to extrinsically bring into your life, and that's why Wegovy and the others have really used their pharmaceutical advertising to let you know what is GLP-1. But now we're really thinking about how our body relates to the external environment. And what many people don't understand, and I think I'd love just to have you touch on this briefly, is the stress level that you put your body through. And obviously the pro-inflammatory products and the inflammation that we put it through are key, but what your actual brain thinks. And when I'm talking thinking, I'm not talking about rehearsing, the things that you know, and you're trying to remember someone's name. I'm talking about deep conscious reverence to thinking through problem solving moments. It's very actually rare to see people get deep into thought and be creative in thought that allows the stress levels to go down. Share with me, Dr. Silverman, because everybody comes in with a different level of stress. And some stress is good stress, but there is a lot of stress that just takes us out and causes depression, anxiety, and worry.
You know, we're interesting beings, humans. We're fascinating in that a little bit of stress, like hormesis, hot and cold, fabulous for the body because we produce heat and cold shock proteins. A lot of stress, very, very detrimental to the overall body. So let's talk about the positive. We want to be the sun and not the moon. We talked about that before. Here's the sun, hormesis, hot and cold. Sauna, great longevity lifestyle hack. But here's the secret recipe behind the idea of it. You want to be stressed, but you don't want it too hot. So the temperature should be 146 to 174. 146 if you wake up and you want to do sauna. 174 if you're doing it to get rid of exudates after exercise. 200 degrees or more, especially like in a Finnish sauna where your head's inside. Too hot, you're damaging your blood-brain barrier. So a little bit of stress, like cold. Do I want to freeze my fortitude like Mark Wahlberg and jump in an ice bath? I don't think that's necessary. The data really includes the idea of 50 to 59 degrees. So a cold shower after going in the sauna will work. Why sauna? Sauna produces a heat shock protein. There's stress proteins that are very health promoting. They're salutary. More so than that, a dramatic decrease in the incidence of cardiovascular disease, the number one killer in America today. I mean, longevity, 51% of people die from cardiovascular disease. Let's start worrying about our overall gut health. Let's start worrying about our overall heart health. So once again, the glowing idea that I want to share is a little bit of stress is good. A lot of bit of stress, let's start meditating and chilling.
I love that. And as we have gone through this podcast together and shared a lot of information, I do want to reflect that every day you add something little into your life makes a difference. And it reminds me of one of the sayings that came across to me by a long-term, very vibrant individual called Raymond Hollywell. And it's the working with the natural laws. But if you're starting to want to find a direction and you're a 16th of an inch off in your alignment, you never make that destination. So if you're in New York to Los Angeles and it's just a 16th of an inch off and you're driving your car down that straight line, you'll never make it to the destination, of course. That's why we want to bring in really talented experts like Dr. Silverman that help you. If you just picked one thing he said today, just one, your change would be maximum as you go through life. And that's how we start. A little bit every day makes it, as Dr. Silverman would say, the sunshine comes out. So we want to ask one last thing as we're starting to wrap up, because you've lived the lifestyle. And I believe truly that chiropractic is not a career, it's a lifestyle.
Mm.
As because we don't let it go when we go home from the 9 to 5. In fact, very few of us ever work a 9 to 5. It's all day, every day, anytime. Someone's at a party, a cocktail party, we're at the amusement park with our kids. It doesn't matter. We're on and we're on with you because the changes need to be made right now and people need direction. And we're not going to turn our back on you in any way, shape, or form. So when you need a question answered, we're there to help you answer it. It's why both Dr. Silver and I do podcasts. It's to get the truth out. It's not easy to find the truth. It's not easy to find someone who's vetting the research and vetting the guests and vetting our reality. But Dr. Silverman, you've made changes in your life for the better. You've made proactive moments happen that really made a difference in your world. Where could you share your own personal experience on some of the things that you've done that you are like even just almost shocked about that perhaps our consumers listening today would consider?
I'm going to keep it easy. Here's two things that I would recommend for them. Number one, stop, limit, do whatever you can to decrease the amount of consumption of ultra processed foods. 57% of the caloric intake of adults in America are from ultra processed foods. They are the bane of our healthcare food existence. There was a study that came out yesterday, just yesterday, where they looked at ultra processed foods and processed food, which is just healthy foods that's cooked. Same caloric intake, same food. Yet if you just ate processed food and not ultra processed food, you could lose twice the amount of body weight and improve your health markers precipitously. So decrease ultra processed food. Number two, get moving. And when I mean get moving, not just move, but do something with weight resistance. You don't have to get a gym membership and lift weights like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Weight resistance, you have your own weight. I'm 185 pounds. That's body weight. Get some sort of weight resistance, men and females alike. So if you had two things, watch what you eat. Remember, food is medicine. Let medicine be your food. And do some weight resistance because muscle mass is your longevity organ.
It's now a moment of reflection of where you are today to where you want to go. And you've said some really nice things: harmony, vitality, balance. The keys to the kingdom are yours. Dr. Silverman wants to live to 110, die of hypervitaminosis. And that I would want for everyone. If we can make it as centurions, what a beautiful life. Because think of the wisdom we can share with others. Dr. Silverman, last statements as we wrap up today's adjusted reality for our truly, truly gifted audience.
Two quotes that always come to mind, real simple. Health is wealth. It's your most valuable asset. And as Jim Rome once said, take care of your body. It is the only place you have to live.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again, Dr. Silverman. Again, I want to repeat for the audience that there was a lot here, and some of it will be a little bit difficult at the beginning, but as you start to integrate a lot of what he said into your life, just remember that he has two best-selling books, Immune Reboot and Inside Out Health, and that is a place where we can reflect, what do we want to change today to make a better adjusted reality for tomorrow? Thank you, Dr. Silverman, for joining us today. Well, I want to thank you for tuning in to Adjusted Reality as we spoke to Dr. Robert Silverman about the connection between chiropractic care, your clinical nutrition, and really about vitality and longevity. There was a lot in there, and I know it was impressive to see how we're starting to look at the future, that our gut plays a massive role in what we eat and what we do every day makes a difference. And if you incorporated one of those suggestions, just think about your life's going to change for the better. And I think that's where adjusted reality takes you. It takes you to a place where you turn out to be better, stronger, faster, and more capable of dealing with the everyday challenges. Now, remember, this podcast was brought to you by the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress. We know life moves pretty fast, and we want to make sure you never miss an episode. So visit f4cp.org/adjusted reality to subscribe to our newsletter, learn more about what Adjusted Reality is up to. Let's say you're interested in hearing from a specific guest, and yes, many of you do request. You can also send your guest recommendations there. So please feel free to enjoy Adjusted Reality and share Adjusted Reality. Want you to subscribe, share the podcast with your friends and family, and as always, rate and review. If you're feeling so inspired to learn more about chiropractic or find a doctor of chiropractic near you, you can visit f4cp.org/find a doctor. If you want to supercharge your whole being, well, our brand new book, Adjusted Reality, comes out on October 14th. You can buy it on Amazon, or you can click the link below in the description of this episode and you can get your copy today. We sincerely appreciate your support and having you always come back and listen more. We look forward to checking in with you again soon.